You guys are ready tonight. Okay, I feel you. All right, so step 11 is this. I do things somewhat right. All right, it says this. It says, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. The verse that goes with this, because we are a Celebrate Recovery type ministry, we have a biblical comparison with this, right? It says, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. That's Colossians 3:16. 3:16. All right, so as we look at this and as we unpack this, right, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God and praying only for knowledge of his will for us. Guys, I'm just going to be real with you. There's going to be times where I feel like you're going to be up and down in this. Or maybe I'm just speaking from experience. There's going to be times where you have a quiet time and everything's working out and everything's rocking and rolling and you feel good almost every time you have that quiet time, and it doesn't happen to happen in the morning, okay? This is just time that you set apart throughout your day, whether that's the morning, whether that's afternoon, whether that's evening, whatever works for your schedule, right? I have 5 kids, so the morning time, ain't nobody up. I wake up at like around 5 o'clock, 5:30, because no one else is up. Okay, and that's my time. That's my me time. Thank God for my me time, right? I would tell you my wife, she's not a morning person. Okay? She does hers at night. That's her me time at night. I don't know how she initially have it when I'm sitting next to in bed with her going, but she does, okay? I haven't figured that out but she does. Whatever that looks like for you, that's when it is, right? That's when the quiet time is. But you're going to go through seasons where everything is fantastic, and I'll never forget when we were living in our apartment, I had this chair. Has anybody just had this chair where you're like, you sit down and like, that's your chair, and it's great. You got your little lamp and your little nook, and it's like everything's just fantastic. Coffee tastes better there. The world's brighter there. Everything's just fantastic. Anybody else have that? All right, so that was me, right? That was my little nook. And then we moved. Obviously, we had to move. We were in a 2-bedroom apartment with 5, 6, and almost 7 of us in this 2-bedroom apartment. It got a little cramped, okay? Then we moved. And then I didn't have that. That little nook got away, right? And so I had a season where my quiet time, I was just trying to find my space again. I was trying to find my time, my place in the house where like everything just kind of meshed. And it's never going to be perfect. And when I finally came to that conclusion, like, hey, you're never going to have that again. That was in that time, in that season, in that moment, right? That I had that. So I had to find a new thing. And so I began a new season. And it was great. I had my little corner again. I was reading my physical copy of the Bible. Everything was great for that first year. And then the second year, it was great. I was reading, or I was scrolling through the physical copy of the Bible, and I was listening to it. Right? And again, there's nothing wrong with the variations of how your quiet time is, right? This is my story. And so the third go around, I don't know if it was the third year or just some point in that time, I stopped my physical copy and I was just watching it scroll. I got very lazy. I was watching it scroll. If you guys know anything about the Bible app, if you listen to it, it will scroll for you. You don't even have to do anything. You just watch it. Right? And so I got to that point where I was listening to it and I was watching it and I was super lazy. Well, like any great addict, when temptation comes, you dive into it, right? So the temptation came, I was reading it, I was scrolling, watching it, and then at one point it exited out of the app. Well, it continued to read it to me. So I was like, okay, I can listen to it and I can double down and I can scroll through social media and it'll be fine. I'll get as much out of it as I did before, right? Nope, that was a straight lie. So I went from that, right? I went from listening to it to scrolling to eventually I was just figuring out I was scrolling through social media, whether it was Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever it was. And I was not having a quiet time. And I was having a conversation with someone and I was asking them how their was, and this is someone that I've done life with for a couple of years now, and this is like one of a few times where he back at me. Usually I have these like aha moments for him, and he's like, oh yeah, and everything clicks and it's fantastic, and I'm like, yes, This go around, it was opposite. I ate myself some humble pie, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know about you guys. I love pie, and not that kind. Okay, it was not great for me. So as I'm talking to him about my quiet time and as that transition was going, I told him, he goes, you know what's helped me recently? I said, well, no, but it probably won't help me. He goes, probably will. He goes, why don't you go back to reading the physical copy of the Bible and ditch your phone? And I'm like, that's brilliant. Humble pie, ladies and gentlemen. So I started doing that again. I started reading the physical copy of the Bible, and I can tell you, game changer. Game changer. I've got nothing against phones. If that's you, you do you, boo-boo. Okay? I'm not telling you how to have a quiet time or anything like that. That's between you and God. But I'm telling you right now, for me, it was too easy to be like, I'm still doing it. All right. They did what? When? Where? Okay? That just wasn't for me. So I had to get back to the physical copy of the Bible. And this is where I'm talking about where you're going to go through seasons and ups and downs and try to figure out what happens. I can tell you another time when I was having a quiet time. Anybody else have quiet times and you're like, okay, I'm doing a quiet time. And I've got this, I'm reading the Bible in a year, but I'm going to add this, whatever it is, this extra book, this extra Bible study. I'm going to do this. So I'm going to add to what I'm already doing. So I'm reading the Bible in a year, I'm going to add the Bible study. Anybody else start adding stuff? Yep. Anybody be like, okay, I'm going to add the Bible study, I'm going to read this book, I'm going to read the Bible, and I'm going to journal all at the same time in the hour time frame that it took me just to read the Bible in a year and my journal. Anybody else do that? At some point, again, you guys may have not felt this way. I do. At some point, I added too much to myself, and then I felt like a failure, and then I stopped doing it. Anybody else in the room feel that? Oh, good. You know, there's nothing worse than being up here and you're talking and you're like, hey, anybody else? And no one else raises their hand. And you're like, I'm alone in all this. No, good. I'm glad you guys are with me. So I added too much. Here's an important thing to remember, right? Don't add too much to your plate. If it's working, let it work. At some point, if you start getting stale or stagnant, that's when you may need to change things up a little bit, okay? But don't get too stale and stagnant where you're going to stop doing it completely, right? It's too important to stop completely. And I've been there too. I've been where I'm like, okay, my Bible plan has not come close to what I put down. Okay, you're supposed to challenge yourself when you create a Bible plan. But if you've never memorized scripture, you don't need to look at it and be like, I'm going to do 50 this year. You ain't done one. How are you going to do 50? Make it reasonable but challenging, right? So if you've never done one, pick 6. You got 2 months to remember one verse. That's pretty reasonable if you've never done it before, right? But as you grow that, small changes make big changes, right? Good. All right. So let's say you don't have a quiet time. You've never started it. You don't know what that really looks like. Here's 3 easy ways to kind of jumpstart that quiet time. And again, it doesn't have to be this big, elaborate thing, guys. It's just a relationship. It's just a relationship. Start small. 5-10 minutes. If that's what you can muster it up, great. Don't look at someone else who's been doing it for years. Pastor Chris, for example, man's been in ministry for 40 plus years. Yeah, his quiet time is going to be like 2 to 10 hours. That was his role. That was what he was supposed to do, right, as a senior pastor. Now Zach's stepping into that. But I can tell you right now, Zach ain't stepping into no 10-hour quiet time. He's building that up, right? So build it up. Just like anything else in your life. You're not just going to wake up and be like, I'm going to do 45 minutes right now. You're already setting yourself up for failure. It's just like, hey, I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna run a mile. I ain't running no mile, ladies and gentlemen, all right? I'm just saying. But I'm not gonna set my alarm and be like, I'm gonna run a mile. No, I may wake up and say, hey, I'm gonna walk for a minute, I'm gonna run for 30 seconds. I'm gonna walk for a minute, I'm gonna run for 30 seconds. Now that's more achievable, right? Yeah, I'm not just going to go out and run a mile. I'm telling you right now, y'all see me running, y'all better run too. Something chasing me, okay? All right, so here it is. Y'all ready? 3 easy ways. The first one. Listen, all right, so prepare your heart. Prepare your heart. You're going to take the first little bit of your quiet time in the morning and prepare your heart. And it could be as simple as, hey, God, cleanse me. You can even, the best scripture that I love that you can use, Psalms 139, 23 through 24. You guys have heard it before if you guys have been in church at any point. It's this. It says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you and lead me along the way of everlasting life. That's 2 verses. And I'm not telling you to memorize that. Eventually you will if you keep saying it enough. But it's as simple as that. Prepare your heart. Hey, God, search me. If there's anything in me before we start this quiet time together, before we start this relationship, before we start this conversation, hey, I'm going to need you to take that out. Because I don't want that in this relationship, right? I mean, it's what brings us here. It's why we come here. Because we don't want what is toxic in our life to be in our relationships in the real world. Yes? So we're preparing our heart here. You prepare your heart when you do it quiet time. The second thing, listen to God. You're like, I don't know how to listen to God. I don't know his voice. The only way you're going to know his voice is if you spend time with him. The only way you're going to know his voice is if you read his word. See, everything in the Bible, even though it was written by man, it was inspired and breathed by God. And so the words in the Bible are what God gave us so we can look back. Because there's nothing new under the sun, right? God was tempted, where Jesus was tempted the same way we are. And he was perfect through all those temptations. Now understand that that's going to be hard for us, right? We're to strive to be that. But understand, our sinful nature is our sinful nature, right? We can thank our great grandparents for all that, right? But if you dive into his word, and God, it doesn't have to be complicated. Again, don't go into it, be like, I'm going to read the book of Judges. Right off the bat, I'm just going to start there. Let me tell you, not the best place you could start, okay? It's just not. It may be a verse that you're going to look at, right? It could be the verse of the day. If you've got the Bible app, and I encourage you, if you don't, get it. Get it. But if you go through the Bible app, you can, verse of the day, and below that verse of the day is a 4 to 5 minute video, right? And it goes through and kind of breaks down that scripture and what it means to the person talking. And at the end of that, there's a guided prayer time. You're looking at maybe 10 minutes, right? But at least you're getting into his word. And again, if you're more mature than that, right? You're not sucking it on the tit and getting that milk, right? You're ready for bread. You're ready for something solid. Then you read a chapter. And you open up that chapter. And if you open up that chapter and you start reading it and you don't understand what it looks like, there's a great resource. You can go to YouTube, right? You can type in whatever book you're studying or reading, and there's going to be a video that pops up. The people that created this video, it's called Bible Project. And it breaks down the book and the chapters and helps you understand kind of what's going on in that time frame, right? God, I do it all the time. I was preaching on the book of Philemon a couple years ago in Kentucky, and I read that sucker. It's one chapter, guys. One chapter. I don't know how many verses, one chapter. I read that sucker 8 to 10 times and was lost. I'm like, I don't understand what's going on in this book. I don't have a clue. So I got on YouTube, did the Bible Project, went through it, and I'm like, oh, that makes way more sense than what I could ever imagine it was talking about. And I reread it after that. God, game changer, okay? Game changer. Get into his word, that's important. The last thing, the third thing, you got to talk to God, and that's prayer, right? It's prayer. When I was looking at this, I had a word that popped up, and I liked the word, and so you saw part of it already because I can't spell apparently. Fat fingers. But the word is this, it's acts. Acts. Yes, it's also a book of the Bible and a variation of other things. Acts. It stands for this. A is adoration. Adoration. So thank God for what he has done in your life, right? Tell him that you love him. Tell him that you're thankful for him. That you're thankful for what he did for you. Because God, he didn't have to send his son to go die on a cross the way he did. But he wanted a relationship with you. With you. With you. With you. You were that important to him that he said, hey, I'm going to ask my son to do the unthinkable, to be perfect. And even though you didn't do anything wrong, I'm going to let people kill you. I can tell you as a parent, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could send one of my kids and watch them get beat the way Jesus got beat. And be like, hey, you're doing this for a reason. And he knew what the reason was, right? But even in that time, he was like, God, if there is any other way, let it be. Let it be. And there wasn't. There was no other way for God to have a relationship with us. Right? So thank him for that. The next one, confession. He goes back to Psalms 139, where you just ask him to forgive you your sins, cleanse your heart. Hey, if there's anything in me that shouldn't be there, hey, let's work on that. Let's get that out. Right? And again, there's going to be times where this is an overnight process and you're instantly like, you're done. I mean, you look at Pastor Chris, for example, when he OD'd, woke up in a hospital at the age of 22, never went to a rehab, never touched drugs again after that, never went to a recovery, like didn't have to do any of that, right? He's got over 40 years, clean time. Instantly, God was like, I'm going to use you. And if we look at that, we could be like, why didn't that happen to me? That wasn't your plan or your purpose. It wasn't your plan or your purpose. Like for me, I relapsed once for a couple years. After that, went to a rehab, came back, watching the doors in 2014, never looked back. For others have relapsed. They couldn't tell you how long. Countless times. And I can't stand up here and tell you that I know why that happened. I can only tell you there was a plan and purpose for that. And the person you need to ask and pray for or pray to is God and say, hey, what's this for? Not why did this happen to me, but what can I do to serve your kingdom in this? Because guys, I can tell you right now, I would not be on stage had I not gone through what I went through. By no means was I a perfect kid growing up, but never once when I was a teenager did I think, hey, I'm going to do drugs when I grow up, right? Nobody in this room was like, hey, this is the path that I'm going to take. But I can tell you, because of what I went through, I love you all way more than I would have had I not. I love you all so much because of what God put me through. Or allowed me to go through. Not what he put me through, what he allowed me to go through. He said, there's a plan and a purpose for you. You see, I could have stepped into that purpose probably years ago when he was like, hey, you're going to go in this direction. Because I firmly believed that I was going to go into ministry when I was a teenager. And when I graduated high school, I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. I want to do what I want to do. Right? I want to have fun. I mean, I'm in my 20s. Who wouldn't want to have fun, right? Confess what's going on. The next thing, be thankful. Be thankful. As you're praying in this and already thank God for what he has done and will do, right? I'll never forget my favorite story to tell. We were living in a 2-bedroom apartment. My wife had 3 boys when we got together. At the time, they were 6, 4, and 2. We had another one on the way very quickly after we got married. So we got married in December. We figured out we were pregnant in January. She was going to come in October. And we did not have the best transportation for a large family. I had a car. It could fit me, my wife, and the boys, but nobody else, right? And so I'm already in my journal. God, thank you for the van that you're going to provide. Because the one we had, God, it was a 2000 with over 300,000 miles on it. Like, it was on its last leg, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't know how it survived that long. I don't think it was very well taken care of. On its last leg, and already thinking, hey, thank you for the van that you're going to provide. You know our needs, you know our want. I'm already thanking you for what's going. And God, I prayed this for months when I figured it out. Months. And it wasn't until September that I got a phone call saying, hey, come sign paperwork for this 2012 Honda Odyssey with 84,000 miles on it. I said, cool. Sign the paperwork. And not only that, God being who he is and how loving he is, so my car payment at the time for my car was $450. The van was going to be another $250. That's $700. That's a lot of money. I'm a new husband, I'm a new dad, and I'm new to bills. Because I don't know about you guys, I didn't pay bills in my 20s. I was too busy doing other things. Yeah? So I'm freaking out. I got rents, I've got utilities, I've got car payments, freaking out. I don't know how I'm going to feed these little monsters. It's all new. I get a phone call, I think it was a couple weeks after that, from the credit union that we did the van with, and they said, hey, I think we can lower your car payment. I'm like, I don't know how y'all going to do that. That's a lot of money. They're like, yeah, we're going to lower it. So total, you're going to pay less than $500 for both cars. Amen. I tell you that story because it's nothing that I did other than thank you for providing. Way before he provided. Keep in mind, 2-bedroom apartment. There's 6 of us. 3 boys, a little angel, me and my wife, and another one on the way. God, thank you for the house and land that you're going to provide, because you know if we stay here, somebody's going to die. It just wasn't going to happen. 7 people in a 2-bedroom apartment, we were going to go insane. Thank you. Thank you. We lived in an apartment for a little over 2 years. We tried after like year 1 to find a place. We could not do anything by ourselves. Every place that we were looking at, it was like, no, couldn't afford it, like everything. We ended up getting this house in 2019, November of 2019. And we've been in it ever since. Right before COVID, right before everything like spiked up, right before like all of it. Half an acre, God provided. Right before. Could you imagine 7 people in a 2-bedroom apartment during COVID? Somebody would have died. House on fire. I don't know how it happened. God knew, but I already thanked him for that. Right? Already thanked him for that. I loved it. Last thing. Supplication. And this means to ask. So ask for others, right? Ask for your leaders. Ask for your missionaries. Ask for yourself. If you don't ask, what's the answer? No. Don't be afraid to ask. God knows what you need. He knows what you need. But you also have to be a big girl and a big boy. And when he tells you no, it's for a good reason. Because he has nothing but the best intentions for you. He loves you. Look, at the end of the day, all this to say, set some time aside to spend with God. Because look, you set time aside to spend with your spouse. You set time aside to spend with the kids. You set time aside to spend with friends and relatives and acquaintances and all these other relationships, right? And I can tell you, all that time you spend with them, as exciting as it is, as fulfilling as it is, there's times where you walk away from that and it's just, right? I don't always get like this high buzz spending time with my spouse. There's times where I need to decompress, right? There's times that I need my space. There's times where I don't want to be around the kids because something happened at work where my mind's racing 1,000 beats a minute trying to create a solution or come up with a solution for a problem or something like that. And there's 5 of them yelling and running around, yelling about Pokemon cards or whatever they're yelling about. Right? But I still, every day I wake up and I'm like, these are the people I'm going to spend time with, right? And so just because you don't have a great quiet time one day doesn't mean you walk away from that relationship and never come back to it. Because if you're going to walk into a relationship with earthly people, with your spouse, with your kids, with your friends, co-workers, and things like that, how much more should you walk in your spiritual relationship with your Father? Way more, right? It's too important not to set time aside. And again, if you've never done it before, hey, I'm going to do 10 minutes of this. This is how I'm going to start. Verse of the day, the little video underneath, and the prayer that goes with it. And start there. Start there. They've laid it out for you. God's giving you every tool that you can possibly imagine to have a relationship with Him. He's giving you 24 hours in a day to be like, hey, just pick 10 minutes. I just want to spend time with you. I just want you to know that I love you. I just want you to know that you're special. I just want you to know that you're beautiful, that you matter, that I see you. Because every other relationship I guarantee you've had or walked into, people have told you, you're trash. You're ugly. You don't matter. You don't have a purpose. You're always going to be an addict. Because once an addict, always an addict. God, I hate that. I don't believe that for a bit. Because you see, when I step into a relationship with Jesus, He said, hey, you're new. You're chosen. The old is gone. And if you have people in your life who can't see that or get on board with that, who are speaking life and affirmation over you, then I would tell you to cut them out because they don't belong. That's not to say that you can't pray for them. That's not to say you can't say hello to them and, hey, hope you're doing well. But I'm telling you, you got to get out of that toxic relationship because your recovery is too important to be in it. I want to leave you with this. Spending time with God is a privilege and not a duty. It is a privilege and not a duty.